Welcome to this DaVinci Resolve Fusion node breakdown. Today's node is the uShader node. So we're going to jump right into Fusion and get going so I can make this as short as possible. It's going to have a lot of info, so let's get going. So on our U-shape node that we have here, we've gone over our material tab and we talked about color, texture, and our material X. And our color is basically using what's called USD materials. And I'll show you that here in a second. And then we had our textures where we could just bring in textures. And then we had our material X. Now, when we bring in material X using these nodes, if I browse, I find this MTLX material. And if I bring it in, it's going to assign that material. And that material basically builds off of all of its textures within that MTLX node. So if I look at our folder here, that MTLX file had these 4 images attached. So that MTLX file is just basically a node breakdown of the material itself. So if you used programs like Blender or Houdini, you had to build your materials, build your shaders. You used all these to build a shader in a big node. So that's basically what your MTLX is, all those shaders combined to create your texture using these individual textures. But we can't manipulate any of this stuff in here. So to be able to do that, we need to use a shader node. And to be able to use a shader node, first we need to bring in a replace material node. So now we can use this to replace our material. And on our replace material node, we pretty much got the same types that we can use, color, texture, material X, that we have in our shape. But still, we can't manipulate any of these textures the way we want. So we need to bring in a shader node. So let's go ahead and bring in a uShader. We're going to bring that over here. Let's go ahead and connect it up. And if we look at our uShader node, we have 2 shader models. And like I said, we had USD, which this is exactly like our shape node. So it's the same way we build materials on our shapes. This is the USD model. So it's exactly the same. However, there are some missing inputs in this model right here. So until we bring those in, we're not going to have the ability to change anything. So if we wanted to build our texture based off those individual textures, we could do that. And to do that with a shader node, what we have to do is bring in a uTexture for each individual file. So if I go to our uTexture and right click my mouse and hold it over the shader and let go, you can see all the inputs that we have. So if we look at all these inputs, not all these inputs are on our actual node. So there's some additional ones that we can't manipulate unless we bring in an image. So let's go ahead and first bring in our diffuse color. And if I go to the texture node, browse, I can go to these textures and I'm going to use my diffuse color texture. And if I go to our shader, now you notice our diffuse is blocked out and we can't make any changes because it's using that diffuse color now. But we still have the ability to change our metallic. We can change the roughness, so we can just use a diffuse if we want. Additionally, we can still change our emissiveness, so we can change that color. But just know this emissive isn't like other programs, like in Blender. If we make something emissive, it actually casts light or it reflects that light off different stuff. It does not do that in Fusion. You're just going to emit on that shape itself and you're not going to see the reflections from the emits. You'll see the reflection from the color of the object if you have reflections, but not like it's an emissive light actually emitting light off of it. So we can keep adding our additional little textures here. So let's make sure we're naming this so we know what everything is. So this is our diffuse. Let's go ahead and bring in another uTexture. And on this texture, let's go ahead and bring in our normal. And if you remember right, normals are linear. We can right click, hold over, and select our normal. Let's go ahead and rename this to normal. And now you can see we're getting our normals on our texture. Let's bring in another U texture. And let's go ahead and bring in our opacity. So we're going to right click, bring that in and select opacity. And if you notice on here, we don't have the option to change this. This is just kind of picking up what this file is automatically and selecting what it's supposed to be. And while I'm here, let's go ahead and change all of our U and V address modes so our wrapping is correct. We're just going to select wrap on these, because this will come into play when I show you some other things here in a second. And let's go ahead and change this to opacity. But you notice this didn't change any of our opacity. We're not seeing through these holes like we should be because our opacity isn't working. So what's happening here is, one, if we look at our image, I'm just going to grab our texture that we brought in for opacity and we'll look at it. All it is this image with a bunch of holes. But as I mouse over, if we look at our alpha value, there's no actual alphas in it. And if I even look at our alpha, it's just straight one across the board. So there technically isn't any opacity or alphas in this media. So that's why this isn't working. But if we go to our shader, we have these new options for opacity once we brought that in. And it's looking for what channel. So it's expecting the alpha channel, which it doesn't have an alpha channel on that image, but it does have RGB. So we can select our R. And if I go, now you can see we're seeing through, and it's using that R value as our opacity. Or you can select green or blue if you want. Down here we have an opacity scale, meaning how opaque that's going to be, more or less. And we have opacity bias, so we can change the bias of that opacity. So let's go ahead and bring in one more U texture node. And on this one, we're going to bring in our metal roughness. So let's go ahead and rename that to metal. I'm going to make sure I put metal because there's a few different types of roughness you can bring in. And now this one, we're going to select linear, but sometimes sRGB will actually give you better results, but I'm going to leave it on linear for right now. Additionally, if I right click, bring this in, we have multiple choices for this. We could bring it into our metallic, we could bring it into our roughness, we can bring it into our clear coat roughness. So this USD model has these options for our roughness. I'm going to go ahead and just bring it into the roughness because that's the simplest and it'll give us the result we're looking for on this USD model. But when we get into the Material X, you'll see there's multiple options and how that differs on every one of them. So now we've got a roughness in there. And if you look, we've got a new channel selection for roughness channel, if we want to change that. Our roughness scale, if we want to change it. And our roughness bias, if we want to change it. And additionally, if we go down to our metallic down here, we can still add how much metallicness we want to it. But you notice our roughness is blanked out and we can't change it. And we can still change our workflow mode from metallic to specular if we want. And we can add clear coat and a clear coat roughness. And we can change our opacity threshold. And if we go to our shape and we rotate it, you can see it worked out fairly nice. So those are the controls we have under the USD model. Now let's go ahead and disconnect all these. Let's go ahead and save because swapping out shaders and everything tends to make your computer crash sometimes. So let's go ahead and switch this to Material X. And instantly you see Material X has a lot more options for everything. Additionally, if I go ahead and grab our diffuse, and actually let's just refresh this node. If I go to our diffuse, right click, hold it over, you can see we have so many more options to input textures or texture data. And this setup is basically the same as, say, your principal BSDF shader or any of those types of shaders you use in other 3D programs. So this may make more sense to you. I am not going to explain exactly what every single one of these do. I will go over the settings, but if you're not exactly sure what these principal type shaders do, you may want to jump in and learn some of that stuff, because going over all these would make for an extremely long video. So we're going to go ahead and bring this into our base color. And we've got a new base color. And right up here, all of our external inputs are going to show up. So our base color just showed up, and it gives us the option to change our color channel. So we can change it if we want. And in our base, it just blocked off the ability to change the color, but we can switch how much of that base color is going into it. Additionally, we can still change the diffuse roughness, and we can change the metalness. So let's go ahead and bring in our normal. I'm going to right click, hold it over our shader, and select normal. And you notice our normal channel just popped up. Now, don't get confused. This does say RGB. I know it's linear, but just leave it on RGB. That's what we want. It's going to still operate off a linear mode that we're bringing in. So now we've got our normal channel. Let's go ahead and bring in our opacity, right click, and we're going to select opacity. And again, on this, if we go to this channel, it's expecting an alpha channel for our opacity. And look at that, it just automatically popped up. But we can change it to RGBA if we want, and it'll still operate correctly. So you may be asking, how is that working if we didn't have it an opacity channel? It's assuming your blacks are actually your zero value alphas, and it's changing automatically. It can get glitchy, so a lot of times I'll just make sure I change this to RGBA to make sure my blacks are operating correctly. If I don't have an actual alpha channel going in, it's going to operate the same. So now you can see we're seeing that opacity in our little material. So let's go ahead and bring in our metal roughness. Now this is where this gets a little tricky or confusing, because there's many options to bring in your metal roughness. So if I right click, hold it over, we have the ability to bring it in as coat roughness, diffuse roughness. We can bring it in as metalness, sheen roughness, our specular roughness, and our transmission extra roughness. So there's multiple options, and it gets confusing sometimes how to bring these in. So let me show you the difference. So I'm going to skip coat, because coat is for your actual coat, which we'll cover here in a second. And I don't care about my coat roughness. Diffuse roughness may work depending on your material that you're bringing in. So if I go back to our shader, go back to the base, you can see our diffuse roughness is now grayed out because it's using that image to bring that roughness in. If I change our metalness up, you notice we're still really not seeing any difference in that roughness. So clearly our diffuse roughness isn't where we want to bring it in. So let's disconnect, let that refresh. So now let's try our metalness to see how this roughness map affects our metalness. It made it a little difference, but I'm still not seeing the scratches and the things on this metal surface that I know are there. But now you notice our metalness is grayed out, because this is what's dictating how metal our actual little image is here. If I change our roughness, it's going to change, but I'm not seeing what I want to see. So let's go ahead and disconnect this roughness again. And on this one, let's go ahead and select specular roughness. And now I'm starting to see those blemishes and the roughness on that metal change. So clearly for this shader, this metal roughness works best in the specular roughness. So we can go back to our base diffuse roughness and we can change that. We can change the metalness if we want. And in changing the metalness, our specular roughness is still dictating how rough or shiny our little object is. So if we go down to specular, now under our specular, we can still change everything, but you notice our specular roughness is no longer selectable because our image is dictating that roughness. But we can still come in here and change our specular levels. We can change our color. We can change our IOR for that specular. And we can still change the anisotropy and the rotation of our specular. I'm not going to start messing around with these because these shut your program down quite a bit if you're sliding them back and forth quick. So that's a little better there. Now, additionally, within our Material X, we have coat. So we can change our coat color. So if I make that purple and I give it some coat, you notice we're getting a purplish type of coat there. And I can dictate how much it's affecting the color of our shader. I can change the roughness of our coat, as well as the color, the IOR, the rotation, and the overall coat roughness. Now, this is the option and the color you want to choose when we're using thin film. So let's go ahead and skip down to thin film. And if I change my film thickness, now we're starting to get that metally looking film on top of our little metal object there. And I can change the IOR if I need to. And if I go back to coat, now you can see how this color is affecting our image. Emission is the same thing. We can add emission, but just remember it is not going to cast light or emit on other objects. Your opacity, whereas is being dictated by our opacity channel. Our sheen allows you to add more sheen to it. If we change our color up and I crank it, our sheen really is only going to affect the light that is shining off the edges of our little object. And it's really difficult to see depending on your model and your other textures, but that's what sheen does. And we can go in our specular and change that. Our subsurface, we can change our subsurface color. Now let me definitely save before I make any of these changes. So let's go ahead and pick a blue for a subsurface. And as I add subsurface detail, you're not going to see it until we shut off our film. So if I go back here, now you can start seeing that bluish slowly pull in. We can change our subsurface scale if we want. Let's go ahead and back that up and bring our film back in because that was a much better look. And down here, we just have our transmission levels, and this is going to change the transmission of your image. And we can change the transmission depth, as well as our color, our transmission scatter, and our dispersion and extra roughness and all that fun stuff with transmission. So now that we've got our general shader set up, one thing you may want to do is change the scaling of your shader. And yesterday we talked about the U texture transform. So I'm going to add a texture transform after my opacity. And I'm going to use this texture transform to drive the scaling of all the rest of my material here, because we don't want one material a different size as the other unless that's the look you're looking for, but we want these all to be nice and even. And for this specific one, a lot of times you'll want to use it on your diffuse because your diffuse is kind of driving the look of your texture. But this one, my opacity is because I want to change the size of my holes here. So if I go into my U texture and I go to scale, I can make my holes larger if I want. But if you notice, everything else is not the same. So I can go through and cut, copy and paste all these textures to make everything the same. Or what's easier is if I just go to this one U texture, right click on my scale and select publish. Now that information is published. And I'm going to bring in a fresh U texture, transform. And I'm going to do this 3 times. I'm not going to copy this node or change it and then copy it because it adds glitches and sometimes your connections don't work correctly. So I'm going to bring in 3 more texture transforms. And I'm going to go ahead and connect them to my other U texture nodes. So my diffuse, my normal, and my roughness. So now if I go to each one of these and go to my scale, I can right click, connect to U texture transform in my X scale. And I'll do that on each one of these. Connect to U texture transform X scale. Connect to U texture transform X scale. So now if I go into my opacity and I change my primary one, you notice all my materials are changing together and scaling correctly. I can make them super tiny or make them large. And if I look at our shape, rotate it around, you can see our texture is all right, other than where our seams are cutting off incorrectly. But that's how you would rescale all your textures all at once. So that is the uShader node. I will see you in the next node breakdown.